What's up, people? And in this video I'm going to talk about how the statue build dev I have is apparently broken while I show you my Techno build. So this is the only Techno build I'm going to show before Worldslayer, because it's, as I said when I first made it, I feel like it unites my other two Techno builds perfectly. I will say the only thing I'm really worried about for this build, for the potential nerfs coming, is if they nerf the freeze duration. If they nerf that, I would recommend just switching immediately to my triple turret Techno build, and all it would be is you just take the status power off all my gear, go skill leech on everything, take cold snap away, put blighted turret on, and then probably take the one mod I have on cold snap and stick circle of power, honestly, because that's would further make him a super tank. And the blighted round turret, its only job would be to just be an extra skill that just heals you more. So best just make it even more tanky. And then the extra turret would also help his support though, because the new skill tree coming for the Techno is going to make turret, if you're near your turrets or allies are near your turrets, they'll start healing and buffing you. So just having that third turret, even if you have no mods for it yet, will still be very beneficial. So yeah, that's my recommendation for that class, if they actually nerf freeze a ton. I already have that build ready to just switch immediately to that. I have a feeling that the triple turret build, the way I've designed it, is not going to get nerfed pretty much in any way. In fact, it's getting buffed. They even want to buff it, I think. So yeah. Now let me also take an opportunity to talk about Devastator. I started this game as a Devastator. I want the Devastator to be so good, but I think it is the actual hardest class I've been able to figure out, besides a bleed dev, which every single Devastator and their grandma in this game does. And that's also why I don't like doing that, because everybody does Seismic Commander bleed dev. Now I'm beginning to understand why it is the only dev build I ever see. I play with a random group of people. If there's a Devastator, I know what build he's doing, because it's always the same. And sometimes rarely they'll branch out and say, well, I'm doing a military, like, dev-proof build, and then they'll do, like, a firepower build, and they always underperform. Like, every single one I've seen, even if they say they're good, they're only good in the sense that they can just get through the expedition and do okay, but they're not going to ever be bleed equivalent. So I learned a statue build. The statue set is currently completely broken. When I made my statue build dev, I thought it was such a good build for support and tanking, and it honestly is, but it was always underperforming, because I thought I got 36% weapon leech at all times. That's what I thought I had, with like double gun damage for further healing off that. And then I have Sandstorm and Death Chains on my gun for further healing off that. He should be healing the kind of insane amounts my Pyro heals, but be way tankier than my Pyro, because he's a Devastator and has Golem on most of the time, has Tremor active, has way more resistance in armor too, and health. So I'm like, yeah, he should be a super duper tank already with that statue set build. And then helping his team with the debuffs from Gravity Leap and the buffs from statue set. Apparently, if you're staggered a little bit at all, even if you have Golem or Tremor out, it's gone, which essentially means that you never have that bonus on you. If you just get staggered once, you lose the bonus. That's how stupid it is. So I'm not even going to show him right now. He's basically the same he is, and we're just going to see if they ever fix statue set. If they do, then I think he might prove to be an extremely, probably the tankiest dev I've ever made, if they ever just fix that buff. Because again, he's at that perfect, he should be at that perfect synergy of health and gun damage, weapon leech healing. As I've said before, the way you get the most out of weapon leech healing is you should actually have more health and gun damage, but you should have just enough gun damage that it just does just a few times more than the basic amount, and then just have a really high weapon leech stat, and you have a really high health bar, so the maximum threshold for your healing is also sky high, and then you're just healing that giant health bar super fast too, like your pure gun build already. So, but you're obviously insanely tankier than a pure gun build because of that. So, we'll see if they ever fix that. In the meantime, I just think Marshal Dev is the best way to go. I think the Marshal Dev is going to be who I level up initially, unless of course if Worldslayer drops and the statue set is already fixed completely, then might try that. In the meantime, Marshal is, I always thought, the second best one, and also one of my best dev builds I think I made. It's insanely tanky. Once you just combine, if you do what I do, you grab as much health as you can, but you max the cooldown. In your skill tree, you go through all three of the skill trees and you grab every kinetic cooldown you can. Get the life absorption from Gravity Leap. Get the damage on Boulder Dash and the cooldown, mainly just so that it heals you a bunch too. And then, Endless Mass is really just a bonus on it, not the feature. It's more about the Gravity Leap and the Boulder Dashing around everywhere. And you do that, and your damage, like, he does more damage than my statue set, so he's like a good balance of, he doesn't do as much damage as a straightforward, low health, bleed dev build can do. But he honestly gets pretty close to some of them, and unlike them, I would say he actually is tankier, just because he has way more health, and his healing, instead of having to make sure he has bleed on something, he just has to activate his skills every time, and he's good to go. He has a ton of resistance, a ton of armor. And the best part is he still has Weapon Leech on his gun, and he also gets a Weapon Leech buff too. And I already know with him, for the Pax tree, I'm going to probably get the Weapon Leech buff from the Pax tree. And he will actually successfully get an insane amount of gun healing. That's why he's going to be a super tank, I can tell. Because he's got a ton of health, a ton of resistance, a ton of armor. All three of his skills pretty much heal him and make him invincible for their duration. And he has a ton of Weapon Leech healing too on his gun. And since he's going to go top tree, his gun damage and his Weapon Leech will both improve with Worldslayer. And I think he'll find that perfect synergy of having just the right amount of health and just the right amount of gun damage and Weapon Leech to get tons of healing off it and be a super tank. And he'll still help his team a lot, because he just won't buff like my statue dude can do, but he'll debuff a ton from the Marshal bonus and from Gravity Leap being maxed on his cooldown with the Despair mod. So that will be what he either does, and if it's also true, because he also has a really good avenue to slap armor piercing on his gun, still get the Weapon Leech buff in the Pax tree, so he still has decent Weapon Leech healing, but the armor piercing buff and an armor piercing buff in his skill tree, just to tweak it a little bit, will essentially give him like 25% less cooldown again on Gravity Leap and Boulder Dash. Like, Gravity Leap will have like a 5.5 second cooldown. I'm not kidding, if that math works out. Now, we don't know. I have a feeling Worldslayer is going to make the cooldown cap at some point, so I might find that the Marshal build might be better off not even bothering with the armor piercing buffs in the sub tree that you've seen that reduce kinetic cooldown based on how much armor piercing you have. That's my initial plan with him, but if it turns out that cooldown works differently in Worldslayer, then most likely he'll just get the Weapon Leech. He'll just further improve his Weapon Leech buff, his damage mitigation buffs, and then still max his cooldown on kinetic as much as I can. Just still make sure I get the max cooldown. Maybe slap on close range damage on his other few pieces if he reaches the cooldown cap, just to still have a little bit more gun damage and a little bit more, even more healing from the Weapon Leech. So, and he'll still be awesome, I know, no matter which way it goes.
You did it, Outrider.
So I just wanted to tell you that. This is my Techno build. The last videos I'll go into, I think, Pyro's the last one, of course.